All right, we're live. What's going on, everybody? How you doing? Lungo will be joining us in a few seconds, or hopefully in a minute or two. So we're just gonna kind of chill back a little bit. Don't worry, Salty. We didn't forget about the live stream or you. Wouldn't surprise me if I forgot, but
We could never.
no. Chatooine's important. It's an important place to be.
So, which episode number is this?
This is, I think, episode 6. I think it's
Looks
episode.
fun.
No, my bad. Episode 5. This is the 5th one we've done.
5.
Yeah,
Okay.
and took like a good month break. I don't think there was really anything truly worthy of talking about over the last month. It's been a very dry period.
Definitely. So we did choose a good time to take a break, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So some of the interesting stuff on Twitter that I've seen lately, I don't know if you've seen it, is like the Rise of Skywalker blue filter that's been going on.
Yeah, I say it all the time because I follow a lot of the pro sequel group, and
Yeah.
a lot of those people are not fans of the Rise of Skywalkers. They find things to complain, and I'm not a big fan of that blue filter that the Rise of Skywalker has either.
Mhm.
But that's like the least of my complaints about that movie.
That's very fair. Very fair. Thank you very much for the super chat donation. Film Edit Studios, much appreciated, my friend. He said, "Star Wars only. I don't know what the beep your problem is. Also, why doesn't it say that in the intro of the videos anymore? And how are you? YouTube won't let me say the F word anymore. I appreciate it. I'm doing a pretty good point in my life, and pretty happy with everything. But yeah, I don't use that intro anymore because part of me is saying it's not as professional as I'd want it to be, even though this is not a professional YouTube channel. Another part of it is, man, I don't know. It's kind of
We're more mature now.
Yes, that's a very good point. When I started this YouTube channel, I think I was 16, maybe 17, and that's when I was doing it infrequently. And over the past 2 to 3 years, I've actually tried to start doing it a lot and as a job. So I don't think it's the greatest thing to constantly have it as an intro. And plus, yeah, with YouTube and the monetization thing, that they're making it where if you have a cuss word within the first minute, I think, or even 30 seconds, it's the ads for it are different. And
you had yours in the first 5 seconds.
Yeah, literally, like the first sentence is the big F-bomb. So it's kind of a hard sell for YouTube to be like, yeah, this is very kid friendly towards any audience. So I decided to get rid of it after a while. I like the new one. It's not anything extremely special. It's just, have you seen literally perfect right there. Thank you, Elijah. Have you seen Star Wars? Yeah.
I have not.
You haven't? Yeah, I don't think I have either. I don't even really think I know what Star Wars is. I don't think most of us do, according to most fandoms. No one's a true fan.
Live long and prosper, right?
I've never seen a Star Trek movie either. Actually, I think I tried the very first one 5 years ago, and about 10 minutes in, I realized I didn't like it.
My friends get annoyed with me because a lot of them are sequel haters, so they don't like J.J. Abrams. And the only Star Trek movies I've seen are the ones made by J.J. Abrams.
Oh, yeah. I actually might have seen the one Into Darkness, the one with Khan, where he kept
That's
saying...
the second one. Yeah.
Okay.
I saw the first one and the third one of the new trilogy. I thought the first one was okay, and the third one was kind of silly. They won by blasting music.
Oh, well, I mean, that sounds like, what was that, the Mars Attacks movie back in the day where...
I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay. Well, it's definitely not a great one that you have to watch. Yet again, man, thank you very much for the super chat. Film Edit Studios. He says,
Thank you.
It's dumb how YouTube have YouTube kids, but then make everyone on the other versions be kid friendly. I think a large part of that is simply ads. I mean, it's simply you want your advertisements and the people who pay for those advertisements to be happy. Once that YouTube adpocalypse happened, it really screwed over a lot of things.
When was that?
I want to say it was back in 2017, 2018. It was when I just started out on YouTube, and so it had no impact on me as a job. I mean, I was working part-time as it is. But yeah, the YouTube adpocalypse really changed everything for YouTube. And just for anyone watching, if you truly ever want to truly support any content creators you like, watch all their ads, man. Every ad on their YouTube video, because that's the only way YouTube content creators actually truly make money, other than, of course, the super chat donations, which really help a lot for the channel, and we do appreciate them. But
I feel like every other year there's some big event that will ruin YouTube. Like last year it was a COPPA, then there was the whole thing with net neutrality. I feel like nothing ends up really happening with it.
The net
things do
neutrality
change.
thing, yeah, net neutrality wasn't a big deal. People overreacted to that, as it is, but it's just ignorance. A lot of us don't really know a lot of the intricacies of that.
Yeah.
But well, when Longa hops in, we'll
Yeah.
bring him into the
He,
stream.
he said 4 minutes ago, cam issues.
Oh boy, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Let him work that out. So I guess we'll just get right into the into the Chatooine show. Let me get the good old logo for Chatooine up here. It's been a hot minute since we've seen it. So what's up, guys? Welcome back here on Chatooine. I'm Star Wars Only, and I'm joined with the Goldman. Lunga should be here momentarily. We finally have a good amount of Star Wars news to talk about. Some good, some bad, and some truly just ugly. Here on Chatooine, we talk about Star Wars news, topics in the fandom, and simply chat about Star Wars. And today we have 2 to 3 topics that I think are pretty interesting. We'll be talking about the Bad Batch series, Hayden Christensen's return to Star Wars, and a potential trouble in paradise for the Kenobi series that is coming to Disney Plus. But first, I know he's not here, so I want to congratulate him before he even gets here. Our boy Darth Daddy Lunga has actually reached 1,000 subscribers and is finally able to monetize his channel. So yeah, big shout out to one of our co-hosts, Darth Daddy Lunga, because it's a big grind to get to that point now. I think where you have to. I don't know how many hours it has to be. What is like 4,000?
4,000. Yeah.
Jesus, yeah, it's 4,000 hours and 1,000 subscribers to get monetized, and that's how you make your money, and that's how you can turn YouTube into it's not even a part-time job, but some form of career. So I'm happy Longa has reached that point, and I mean he does YouTube every day. I mean literally every day.
So it's important for him. That's why it's a pretty big deal. I'm really happy for him too.
Me too. I get annoyed sometimes with the restrictions that YouTube places on the content creators because it limits the creativity and what people can and can't do. So I do kind of want to get into the first bit part of the news, and we'll definitely, if Lunga can come in, we'll talk to him about it too. But the biggest piece of news over the past month is that Lucasfilm has officially announced a Bad Batch series, which is a group of experimental clones. This was after the Clone Wars era, I believe, and these are the guys we saw in season 7 of the Clone Wars. They were the first arc, the Bad Batch arc, and that's I wouldn't say it's the biggest news in the world, but this series is set close post Clone Wars era, and they're going to be taking on daring missions of mercenary missions, it seems, as they struggle to stay afloat to find new purpose. And the series will debut on Disney Plus in 2021. So Goldman, since it's just me and you, man, what do you think about Lucasfilm committing to a new animated series for the Bad Batch group?
So I believe we spoke about this the last time we were here, and if you remember, I wasn't too fond on it.
Yeah.
So when it was officially announced, I did take some time. Like, okay, this is no longer a rumor; it's an official thing. How do I feel? I made a video on it, and I still wasn't too happy with it. I didn't love the Bad Batch characters. I thought the arc was fine for the Clone Wars in the beginning of season 7. But the more I think about it, I think my problem with it is not so much the story or the concept, because I do think it's actually a pretty unique story that you can dive deep into these clones and maybe what it's like. You can explore PTSD post-war. Will these clones be stormtroopers at first? Will they work for the Empire? Because, the clones are still part of the Empire in the beginning before they get decommissioned. The ideas are that the Order 66 didn't affect them because, since they were mutated, maybe something went wrong with the chip in their head. So when you think about all of that stuff, maybe they go find other clones. I think that there's a pretty unique story to tell, and I kind of like that story. My biggest problem is I just don't like it as a show, because when I think of all the possibilities that they can do for an animated series, I don't think of telling a story about the Bad Batch, because it seems like a nice, smaller, contained story that would be great for maybe a novel trilogy or for some comics. I know not everyone reads those, but for the hardcore fans that would really care, I think they would. But when I think of the other possibilities for what they could do with an animated show, whether it be the Rebels successor show that's currently rumored, something that I want, which is a show post Rise of Skywalker that advances the characters from the sequel trilogy, whether it be something for the High Republic, the Old Republic. I just want them. I would rather see the resources of an animated show devoted to that, but it's going to the Bad Batch. So the story is not really my problem. I think could be a great story, and I trust that would be a great story. I just rather they spend the resources for an animated show on something else.
That's fair. And one thing I think that was a large influence to the Bad Batch
Mhm.
happening is that Clone Wars season 7 was
Huge
extremely
success.
successful. Yeah,
Yeah,
and it did
definitely.
big numbers. And I think for Lucasfilm, they're looking at it and saying, or even Disney, because Disney is the one who ordered this for 2021 at least. They're looking at this and saying, well, this was a big series. What's fresh on people's minds? We have a thing, a recency bias is what you would call it. And I know there's
Mhm.
been a large part of the fandom that is, I wouldn't say cried foul for this series, but has come out and said we really would have preferred something about the Delta Squad. What are your thoughts about that? Delta Squad versus, I mean, have you played that game?
That's Republic Commando, right?
Yes, Republic Commando. I can't
Okay.
remember when that came out. It was like early
A long time
2000s.
ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a minute.
So funny enough, I was actually going to do a let's play of that game. I did one 2.5 hour stream where I played the whole first part, which is on Geonosis, and I just never finished the game. I mean, it was a fine game. I never really got invested in the characters. I'm not sure would I rather see if they were going to do an animated show about clones post Order 66. Would I rather see new clones or clones that were already established? I think I'd rather see the Bad Batch. Now, just my first thoughts because we know them, and there's something unique about them that they're these mutated clones. They're different. I'm not sure those Delta Squadron people could be different. I don't really know much about them, but I think the Bad Batch is a little more unique.
I
What do you
agree.
think?
I think they're more unique because they are experimental and they each have certain things that make them unique.
Yeah.
Echo, you have Crosshair, who's the one who's really good with the sniper, and then you have Tech, who's
Mhm.
of course good with the tech. It's a very simple group, which I think for what the Clone Wars does and for what they might be looking for is exactly what they need for a series like this. Think
Mhm.
a lot of us have to remember that this is probably going to be geared towards a younger audience, like the Clone Wars was when me and
Yeah.
you were coming up and growing up. The
Mhm.
Clone Wars is what really kept Star Wars alive from 2008 to, geez, what was it, 2012?
13, 20.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it
well,
ended in
yeah.
2012, and then the Lost Missions season 6 came out in 2013.
You're
I
right. You're
think.
right. And that was a big deal for a lot of Star
Mhm.
Wars fans because they had a rough start. We could see history repeat itself with this one. I think another interesting part of this series, though, is that Dave Filoni is the executive producer, but he's not the executive director anymore, and he's also
Mhm.
not like a head writer or anything. So, what are your thoughts about him kind of taking, in my opinion, a Kathleen Kennedy type approach to this, where he's the one who's putting the team together? And I'll add this to it as well: the writers for the show and the head
Mhm.
directors for the show are people who have worked on Star Wars Rebels and Star Wars Resistance. So this
Mhm.
is kind of the post Lucasfilm, George Lucasfilm
Mhm.
kind of animated era where we have people who are involved in Disney and other projects. I know the head writer, she's written for shows like NCIS and a show called The Golden Boy. So you have, in my opinion, a diverse group of people in charge of the series. But the guy who's the executive director for the series, he was I think, the executive director and producer for Star Wars Resistance. So does that change
Mhm.
your anticipation for this at all?
So I'm actually really glad that Filoni's kind of taking this, as you said, Kathleen Kennedy type role where he's overseeing everything. And I like that because now that I think about it, I can't see this show being something that's really grand in scale. Like, I don't see it being as big as Clone Wars or even as big as Rebels in terms of just the scale in the universe. So if they're devoting resources to a smaller show, then makes me think that they're more willing to do other kinds of animated shows. Like, we'll have not just one going on. Like, there's a rumors Rebel sequel show, so
Mhm.
maybe they'll have more than one going on at once. And you can't have Dave Filoni do everything. And I think the great thing about Star Wars is you have people come in and try these projects, and then you can find your next Dave Filoni. Um, and so I'm not sure who's in charge of this. I don't really, even though I'm not a big fan of Star Wars Resistance, I don't feel the storytelling was the problem. I just think it was really handicapped by being on Disney. It wasn't Disney XD, but one of those childish Disney
Yeah,
shows.
it was on Disney and it was
Mhm.
at like 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah. The show was just really handicapped by all the limitations. Like, oh, we don't want to take big risks. We just want to be really kid friendly. So that was my big problem with the show, and it was hard for me to enjoy. But I did somewhat like the characters. So now that the show is going to be on Disney Plus, they do have a lot more mature freedom because they did the Clone Wars. So I can see them still going in that more mature direction. So I wouldn't say that the Resistance creator makes me more excited, but it doesn't really hinder my excitement for this either. I'm just like, okay, I'm glad that there's new people having their crack at Star Wars, and maybe we can find a next Dave Filoni.
Yeah, well, and that's one thing Lucasfilm has had a history of is kind of hiring from the inside. And I think a big influence for the show is the popularity of the Clone Wars over the past 5 years. I mean, even yet again, thank you very much for the super chat donation, Film Edit Studios. He says Galaxy Edge should be Clone Wars era. And I think that's a popular opinion among a lot of Star Wars fans because the Clone Wars has seen a resurgence of popularity, not only because of the new season, but just because it was such a beloved part of the Star Wars fan base for a very, very long time. And on the last little part, I guess, about the Bad Batch for me and you is what do you think about the series and like in terms of how many seasons do you think they should commit? Because we know it's coming out in 2021, but like with the Kenobi series, that's going to be a one series thing, 1 season, 6 episodes.
Yeah.
It could be the next Clone Wars because you have a lot of potential after episode 3. You have a lot of potential dealing with these clones, finding their purpose in the world. And don't forget, word on the street is from the guys who leaked this series and got this 110% right. Kessel Run Transmissions, I believe is their name. They said that in this series, you're going to see Ahsoka, you're going to see Rex, and Rex is going to be reuniting with people like Cody. He's going to be hunting down people like other clones, I guess, in general, just brothers for him. So what do you think about them committing more than 1 season to this series and really expanding on the story?
I don't think it will be that long of a show. I mean, people forget Rebels wasn't even that long. There were 4 seasons, but seasons 1 and 4 were pretty short. They were like half seasons. So really it was like 60 to 70 episodes. I don't see this series going that long just because I'm not sure where they could take this story, because this is going to take place right after Order 66. At least that's what the assumption is. The rebellion doesn't start until a decade later. So are they going to really devote 5 seasons to this really, what it seems like a personal story? And even if Ahsoka and Rex do become a big part of this show eventually, we know Rex disappears and he goes with the Wolf and Gregor to whatever planet that was. And he's not part of the war. Ahsoka does become Fulcrum, but that's not until Rebels, which is like 15 years later. And there's one other aspect which I feel like they're going to ignore. But there's this, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Star Wars comics, but there's this mainline Star Wars comic that was like 100 issues or 75 issues, and it ran chronologically between episodes 4 and 5. And at one point, Luke and the main characters, they ran into this stormtrooper squadron called Scar Squadron. And it was actually Task Force 99. And you never see what they look like underneath the helmets, but just the silhouettes of all those stormtroopers and the just their armor it's the Bad Batch. Like that's the heavy implication. Do you have a picture of it?
I don't. What's the name of it again?
Scar Squadron or Task Force 99. From the Star Wars comics. Like if in the chat, go look it up. It's a squadron of 6 stormtroopers. There's one new guy, but the other 5 you can say, oh, that's I forgot their names. One was Hunter. Like you can tell, oh, that's Hunter. That's the big guy. That's the sniper. That's the guy with the glasses. Like you can tell that the implication when that comic was written was that, oh, this is the Bad Batch. I'm not sure when those issues came out. So as someone who does follow the canon, it makes me wonder, okay, since those stormtroopers are the Bad Batch, like just look at a picture of it. Is that where these clones are going to end up? Because if it is, I don't think that's a particularly interesting story. What, you find it? Hello?
There you go.
All right.
Might be lagging on my end then.
Okay. So if the clones do end up being stormtroopers, I'm not sure that's a particularly interesting story because they just become soldiers. And I feel like the interest of this show is how human the clones can be and what it's like for them after the war. And I think a great arc for these clones would be how in the arc during season 7, they kind of made fun of Rex because they called him a reg because he was just a regular clone. And maybe after the war, Star Wars Only's gone. Just me. I'll continue. So after the war, the clones, they kind of get an appreciation for the other clones, and then maybe they go searching for them. Maybe that's how they run into Wolf and Gregor, because we know Wolf and Gregor do survive, and they go on to be with Rex and Rebels. So maybe they find some other clones. Maybe they run into Cody, and there's that confrontation. And I can totally see Rex also wanting to find other clones, because the clones are his life. Those are his brothers. They're not just friends, they're his brothers. So after the war, I can't see Rex just like abandoning the clones, especially Ahsoka too, because Ahsoka does care a lot about the clones. So I can see them trying to find some other clones. All right, welcome back.
No, thank you very much. You're the one hosting it today. Yeah, I guess my internet went out. Sorry about that.
No worries.
I did see the group you're talking about, the Task Force 99.
Yeah,
I'll see if I can put that in real quick.
I can pull up a picture on my phone.
It looks like,
yeah,
to me it does look like
if you show the people in the chat, like it is the Bad Batch. So my bet would be that they ignore that comic, because I think Dave Filoni did ignore some things from the Ahsoka novel. I'm not sure. Have you read much of the canon novels at all? Great. Well, anyway, I have. And in the beginning of the Ahsoka novel, I won't go into spoilers if anyone here does plan on reading it, but they do cover the Siege of Mandalore as a flashback, like a prologue to the book. And the book came out a few years before Clone Wars was revived. Just me again. So yeah, the Ahsoka book did come out a few years before Clone Wars was revived. And Dave Filoni did ignore some of the things in that book. Like in the book, it was said that Ahsoka had her green lightsabers at the Siege of Mandalore. You good?
I don't know. I'm not going to try saving that image anymore, though. Every time I do.
Is that the problem?
I don't know. I won't tempt fate.
I'll pull it up on my phone. So I was just talking about how it seems like, at least in Dave Filoni's case, but they're willing to ignore smaller aspects of the books and comics for the sake of a better story. Like how in the Ahsoka book, they literally have a line-by-line scene of him and Maul. That would be a huge gain. What were they talking about? Oh,
you were talking about the canon inconsistencies, because I remember hearing a lot about that with the Ahsoka Tano book, where
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, what was it? Order 66 started when she was fighting Maul in that book.
So what happened in the book? So they have a scene-by-scene play of the Siege of Mandalore in that book, and for one, the conversation between Maul and Ahsoka isn't in the show, but it's a similar conversation, but it's just not like word for word. And then what happens is, I think Ahsoka has Maul beat, but then Order 66 happens. Now, the thing that confuses me is that I think Rex somehow still got rid of his chip, and the other clones were attacking him. So Ahsoka had to make a decision: do I capture Maul or do I save Rex? And she chose to save Rex, and that's how Maul got away. So if they're gonna ignore something like that, that's pretty big. I guarantee they're gonna ignore that one comic of Scar Squadron, which is the Bad Batch. Like, it's too obvious.
That's a very good point.
So I don't think they'll follow it. Hey,
I made it in the chat too. Let's see, get a good background going.
I don't know.
Now that you're here,
it's all right. Yeah, I've been having some technical difficulties myself with my internet. It looks like, but we've been talking about the Bad Batch series. So what do you think about that? Oh, hang on. Let's look at 99
Star Squadron. So like you can tell the guy in the back is heavy, not heavy. Wrecker, and then like I don't remember all their names, but the guy besides the guy in the front, the other 5 are the Bad Batch. So we were talking about how is the show going to go in that direction, and how I don't think so, because they've ignored things in the books and comics before.
That was a comic book, right?
Yes.
Was that
a pretty big one?
Were they clone troopers or stormtroopers?
Stormtroopers, because it took place after episode 4.
I was going to say, because those were stormtroopers.
But it's like the silhouettes. It's basically the Bad Batch. Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, they're obvious. You could tell from everything that Disney's doing. They are, and this is what upsets people the most is like, oh, you're not using the actual source material, but you're picking parts from source material and using it, repurposing it for stuff you want to do. Which I'm sorry, to be fair, that's what writers do. But
yeah.
I mean, that's what we do. You know, that
Yeah.
you draw inspiration from bits and pieces of things and make it your own. So you are drawn from stuff, but I mean, we'll see. I've never read that comic, so I don't know what it was like.
I read it and I don't really remember. I just remember the presence of those characters.
Yeah.
And I don't particularly care if because it's not a retcon if they do. It's not a contradiction. It's just like you had this, like it was implied that this was the Bad Batch and now it's not. So again, it's not a contradiction. It's just like, oh, you're kind of changing it a little, which is fine. I'd rather this show be good and stray away a little bit from the canon than follow the canon strictly and not be a show I end up enjoying. Yeah.
My problem with it is like, I mean, I keep saying it, and I know I sound like a homer, but I every time something new, I'm like, oh, I'm excited, and I am. But I am the kind of guy that gets excited anytime I see anything that's new that's Star Wars. I want to see what it is. Then I'll make my judgment after I see it. So I'm excited for something new Star Wars coming, but I do have reservations about the Bad Batch, mostly because it's like, how many stories do we have? You know, how many stories are we gonna have with them? You know,
that ties into a question where Star Wars only asked how long do you think this show can go, and I kind of said the same thing. I don't think it can go so long because again, how much could they tell about these characters?
Right, 1 or 2 seasons, and like people make a case with other things too. Originally, before all this, you know, we were like, who do we have? We had Rex. That was the only clone trooper, and those are who were the 2 others that were with him in Rebels.
Wolfie and Gregor. Yeah.
There you go. As far before all this stuff, those were the only 3 clone troopers we knew that survived. Order 66 and kept on going. Now we're adding this whole group, which I get it, and I knew this was going to happen. I said it when I first saw them. These guys do not have the chip. They don't. They were a separate batch that was made. They were probably never meant to survive longer, so they never even bothered the chip, or they were created before they even developed the chip. They were like the first batch of clone troopers they were making. You know what I mean? Before they even developed the chips. So I knew they were headed this way. But you know, again, maybe 1 or 2 seasons. I think it's a short-lived thing. And then, you know, how interesting are they after the prequels are over? How interesting are they in the beginning of the Empire? Because that's where this is going to be taking place.
Well, not only that, I would ask how interesting are they in general? I mean, I hate to be a Debbie Downer with it, but I think season 7 for Clone Wars really wasn't that great of a season. And I know people are going to say, oh, well, the last 4 were amazing. And you're right. The Siege of Mandalore was amazing. But man, I remember trying to binge watch the first season and I fell asleep during the first 2 episodes. And don't get me wrong, the Trays and Trey, I don't know. I don't even know who the girls that Ahsoka team.
Trace and Rafa.
Trace and Rafa. That one was so boring. I couldn't get past the 10 minutes of the first episode.
The Martez sisters.
Yeah, the Martez sisters. Couldn't stand that one. But I also didn't really enjoy too much of the Bad Batch arc as well. So I'm excited to hopefully learn a little bit more about them. And actually, one thing I like about this is I feel like it's a little bit of new territory for Star Wars. It's not truly a safe bet in the sense of it's something predictable like Solo, a Star Wars story, or Rogue One, where you truly know the ending. There's an open-endedness to the results of these characters. But I do want to segue into this next part about what they're doing with Star Wars. If you guys have noticed, at least that I've noticed over the past few months, is that Lucasfilm is committing a lot towards Disney Plus, like we've noticed over the past year. But for example, in 2020 of this year, we're getting Clone Wars Season 7 that wrapped up in May, and in October, we're going to get Mandalorian Season 2. Now, in 2021, at the beginning of the year, we'll be getting the Cassian Andor series, and in the last half of 21, we're going to get this new Bad Batch series. And I'm just speculating, in 2022, we're definitely getting the Kenobi series, but we also could get the Rebels successor. So, Lunga, I'll pitch this over to you. What do you think about Star Wars doing a 1 live-action thing a year and then doing a 1 animated show a year on Disney Plus every year for Star Wars content?
I think every year that's good, because if you think about it, it's not a lot. You know what I mean? Now, if you say 1 live action total for the whole year, Is that what you're saying? Like,
Yeah, like one live action and then one animated. So you get two shows every year, but one's live action, one's animated, because it's two completely different productions you're having to deal with. You know, Jon Favreau and Tony Gilroy and Deborah Chow, those are the people who are in charge of Mandalorian, the Cassian Andor series, and then the Kenobi series. But then you have someone like Dave Filoni in charge of Clone Wars season 7 and then this Bad Batch series. That's completely different production teams. You got animation and you got actual film crew. Right. So it seems like a good idea to have one for each every year.
Well, my question is, you're saying one a year, which if we have Mandalorian right now, and we're getting obviously Cassian Andor and we're getting Kenobi. If you're saying one a year, are we saying Mandalorian 1 year, Kenobi another year, Cassian Andor another year? Because if that's what we're doing, then we're waiting years between
seasons.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, most likely, but because right now we have Mandalorian in 2019 for the first season, then another one in 2020 this year, coming October. But we don't even know.
2 years to see a season 2 or season 3. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
Well, no way. It just seems like they're trying to keep us entertained, because if you do Cassian Andor, let's say that releases in, God, I'll just pitch it and say maybe April. Let's say we get Cassian Andor series in April, or maybe even a little earlier, so it wraps up on May the 4th as well. May the 4th comes out, we get the ending to Cassian Andor series for the first season, get a trailer for the Bad Batch, which comes out in the last half of the year and probably ends up ending around December. That's 2 Star Wars shows we got in a 1-year time frame, and I think for the Star Wars audience during this movie hiatus, that's not a bad thing, but in terms of live action, I feel like that's where most people, general audiences, are more appealed to. So I think
TV shows, man, people listen. When people had to wait like a year and a half almost for Game of Thrones, they were like dying. It's like, what the hell? No one wants to wait that long. I mean, before we used to wait. You know, we would wait over what the summer. We would have that 3 months before a new season started, usually for old network shows. You know what I mean? And then you'd have the holiday break and then come back in. But now we're like, a season ends and we're waiting for these big productions like HBO stuff, like a year before we see it. And I think a year is like the longest you can wait between seasons. And even then, people are gonna have to get caught up again, because like, geez, that was a year ago. I forgot everything that happened.
We have a shorter attention span now, and mainly when it comes to memory too. I see your point. I just feel like for Lucasfilm, putting out 2 Star Wars shows a year, for the amount of creative crap that goes on behind the scenes, I feel like that's a huge commitment. Goldman, I ask you, what do you think about Star Wars having a future on Disney Plus with these new shows and series, and your idea of having an animated one a year and a live action one a year?
No, I think you're somewhat underestimating how much Star Wars is actually going to be on Disney Plus, because if this Bad Batch thing is confirmed, the Cassian Andor is confirmed, Obi-Wan's confirmed, Mandalorian's confirmed, this Rebels successor show is not confirmed, but through reliable sources, it's very likely.
Yeah, it's very, very likely.
And besides Obi-Wan, I don't think all of these series are just going to be one season. Like they already said that Mandalorian is going to be going to season 3. At least that's what Giancarlo Esposito said. So I could see them maybe doing. I don't think they'll have more than one live action show going on at the same time, but I could see them doing the Cassian show maybe in the summer, and then the Mandalorian in the winter.
So we have year-round Star Wars, something playing,
and then and maybe even 2 animated shows. Like I don't think it'll be that big of a deal if they have an animated show and a live action show going at the same time, because the amount of people that watch the animated show will be nowhere close to the amount of people that watch The Mandalorian. Or I wonder how popular the Cassian Andor show will be, but we'll see when we get there.
I think if they dive deep into the underworld, the Cassian Andor will be good.
Yeah. So I think you underestimate how much Star Wars there's going to be. And I don't think it's going to be a big problem, because it's not movies. I think movie fatigue was a concern. But if it's a television show, like we look at these DC shows on the CW, there's like 10 of them. There's a lot of Marvel shows. And even with the MCU shows on Disney Plus, there's going to be a lot of them. You have something to say, Longa? 5?
5.
Oh, 5 of the CW show?
There's 5.
Oh, okay. Well, I haven't watched any of them. I don't know. But there's still a lot. So yeah. What was I saying? Oh, so that I don't see having numerous shows at once being a big problem, especially since with the MCU, they have all these confirmed shows and the movies. So with Star Wars, I don't see it being a big problem. I don't think they'll go 2 live action shows on at the same time. I don't see that happening.
No.
I like Lunga's point about having year-round Star Wars, Star Wars content 24/7 on Disney Plus. It does seem like the short-term future. I want to ask both of you, though. I'll start with you, Lunga. Do you think this is going to keep the Star Wars fan base entertained until the next film comes out in potentially 2024? Because, rumor has it that 2022 Star Wars film may not happen. And if it does, kind of an interesting concept we can get into a little bit later is that it could be a Star Wars film we get on Disney Plus instead of a theatrical release. But do you think having year-round Star Wars on Disney Plus is going to keep the Star Wars fan base entertained and happy for another 4 years?
When did we forget that we waited how long for movies before?
It was well, okay. I mean, yeah, you got a good point. It was 3 years between prequel film.
Did we forget this? I mean, that's been if you're an old Star Wars fan, that's been the heart of it. I mean, we lived through the dark years. I mean, you weren't even born yet. We lived through the dark years where there was nothing. We were scrambling for anything we can get, which is why the EU is such a a soft spot for so many older Star Wars fans, because it's all we got. You know what I mean? From Lucas was like hiding; he was in his basement, Skywalker Ranch, and now. Will it keep them entertained? It could, but I don't think that's even necessarily the goal. It's part of the goal, but I think honestly their goal is to create new fans. That's what their goal is with the Disney Plus. It's to create the new generation and younger generation of fans to keep the franchise going forward. Because us old heads are gonna die off, man. I mean, we're gonna,
It means Star Wars only got time.
We ain't get long in the tooth anymore. You know what I mean? I'm reaching a point where I think I have more behind me now than ahead of me. So,
oh yeah, Once you hit 50, Lunga, that's the halfway point, buddy. I mean,
when I make it to 100.
Yeah. Well, we're hoping to keep you around for as long as we can. If not, we'll just use the Bad Batch group to hopefully clone you and then keep you working for us. So Goldman, I got to ask you: do you think this is going to keep the Star Wars audience happy and satisfied until 2024?
I do think so, because when you look at something like The Mandalorian, I would say that entertained more people than The Rise of Skywalker did.
100% agree.
If The Mandalorian's going to be as good as it was for the first season, even if there was nothing else, even if we got 8 episodes of The Mandalorian per year, and assuming that each season maybe ended on a bit of a cliffhanger, so there was an incentive to go to I want to see the next season, I think we would be entertained. Because when you look at something like The Force Awakens, I mean, the early era of Disney Star Wars, we just had 1 movie per year. And I think the discourse after The Force Awakens really kept people excited for 2 years. And, The Last Jedi happened. But with something like The Mandalorian, even if it was just that, I think we would be somewhat entertained. And we're going to have all these shows. People forget the Leslie Headland show is going to be a thing. I forgot about that.
Yeah, we don't even know when that's coming out. Yeah,
so that's 4 live action shows. 1 animated show, 1 sort of confirmed animated show. That's 6 shows, and then a movie. And they haven't canceled the 2022 date. That's just the assumption right now. So then it's only 5 years. Yeah, it's only 5 years.
I still like separating animated from live action, because there's a lot of Star Wars fans that just do not get into animated stuff at all. They don't watch it. So I consider it. When I look at it, it's like, oh, there's 5 Star Wars shows if you count the animated. I don't even look at it that way. I look at it as there's live action, there's animated. Yeah, in total they could equal this, but I don't count it as part of the entire slate, because it does appeal to different demographics. It doesn't always get everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
but
true.
The Clone Wars was really popular. Yeah, it's animated, but it took not Mandalorian popularity, but it was really popular.
Yeah, and it's the biggest one since the Mandalorian came out. It did originally, for original content, at least for Disney Plus, it beat Stranger Things. It beat the Mandalorian, but that's only because it was more recent. But one of the big shows I think we all can admit is going to be one of the biggest deals for Star Wars is the Kenobi show. And now we have reports that are coming out that says the next piece of big news is Hayden Christensen is rumored to reprise his role as Anakin Skywalker in the upcoming Kenobi series, which comes out in 2022. Now, this news does come from LRM Online, who I think is a very, very, very credible source for this kind of stuff. They've gotten things right in the past, and they say the deal was done this year and meant to be announced at Star Wars Celebration in August before it was canceled. The report also suggests that the character role for Anakin was initially just going to be a cameo, but now he will be a major character in the series. Goldman, I want to ask you, what do you think about a potential Anakin Skywalker appearance in the upcoming Kenobi series?
This makes me really excited because I'm not the biggest Anakin fan, but it makes me excited because what I want to see from the Obi-Wan show is kind of how tortured he is after the fall of the Jedi. Like his whole lifestyle, everything he's known is gone. And Anakin was his brother. And we got to see that in the Clone Wars, how close they were. But the movies, with the writing, they didn't seem as close. So in this show, if a good portion of it's going to be like flashbacks, I don't think they would sign to Hayden Christensen just to be in the suit of Darth Vader. I mean, he doesn't even voice him. So if Hayden Christensen's going to be there, they're going to use his face, and it's going to be a flashback. Like maybe if a good portion of the show will be flashbacks, it'll show maybe how close they really were and how hard it is for Obi-Wan to move on from that past. Like maybe after Revenge of the Sith, he still wants to go on some adventures and he really wants to do some help. But over the course of the series, he really needs to realize like, oh, my mission with Luke is more important. And maybe in some ways he has to let go of his relationship with Anakin. Maybe that's something that's just really hard for him because, he had the relationship with Satine. He's a human being. You get attached to people and it's hard to let go. So I can see if Anakin's going to be there, I see that as something that's going to be really hard for him to let go. I don't think what do you guys think about Darth Vader being in this show? Do you think it will happen?
I don't want it to personally. We saw Hayden put the suit on in Revenge of the Sith, and that was just kind of a symbolic thing, in my opinion. I really think that if they put Vader into the Kenobi series, it's gonna take away from Kenobi in a sense. And I really think that the prequels should have been about Obi-Wan Kenobi as a character and him coming up as the Jedi and everything. And it was kind of a mix about being about Obi-Wan, but also being about Anakin and him becoming Vader. I'm a little tired of Vader. And I know that's hard to say as a Star Wars fan.
I'm the same way.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is a series about Obi-Wan Kenobi. I don't want to see Vader because it's kind of like the Luke Skywalker effect in the sequel trilogy. Once Vader gets on screen, he's going to take everyone's attention away. I really would prefer them to explore, like you were saying, Goldman, the relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan, because I feel like I didn't get enough of that in the prequels, at least authentic kind of relationship. So, Lunga, I do want to ask you, how do you think they're going to implement Anakin into the story? Do you think it's going to be flashbacks like Goldman was saying? Do you think it's going to be I was saying on my channel that it might be like some the Dagobah cave for Luke on the dark side cave where he has to face iteration of Anakin. What are your thoughts?
Well, at first thing on your point of you're saying it has a Luke Skywalker effect. I really don't want to see too much more Vader either. My buddy Yellow, who's on my show every day too, so when I brought this up about how Hayden might be in there, he's like, oh, okay, so it's the Vader show now.
No, like he's got a point.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to see Darth Vader only because the whole point is, the whole feeling at least is Vader really thought Obi-Wan was gone.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe I haven't read in the comic books if they kind of retcon some of that stuff in the Vader comics where he had some feelings or senses of him or not, but the whole point is there was supposed to be this complete separation of these two people, these two brothers, until they met in A New Hope again. You know what I mean? I don't want Vader in there at all. And it almost seems like if he is, then it is literally just fan service. There's no point for Vader. Now, as far as Anakin, yes. And as far as flashback scenes, as far as fleshing out, the torture and the tumult that Kenobi went through during these years in there, and the guilt and all that other stuff associated with it, I could see it as flashbacks. But I have a problem hearing the words he is having a major role. It's going to be flashbacks, dude. I mean, what are we going to see? 3 to 5 minutes of Anakin Skywalker an episode, or every other episode, maybe? I don't consider that a major role.
Well, you have a good point there, and that's one thing that's kind of perplexed me on this news is that it was initially going to be a cameo, and I did believe that, and I do see that happening. But if he's considered a major role in this, it would have to be something like flashbacks. It would have to be something. Well, one thing I think that's noteworthy is that it is Star Wars, and it does add a unique twist and spin to things that they could possibly pull off. But I think a large part of this is, and this will kind of lead to the next question, is that there's been a really big resurgence in prequel popularity. And I feel like that's one of the main reasons Anakin is back in the series, because if you look at what they did last year with August 2019, they announced they had the Kenobi series, all the scripts were written and ready to go, and it's currently being rewritten right now. And that's going to be part of the next topic we talk about. But I feel like part of the rewriting process that Lucasfilm wanted was something like this to bring Anakin in because of the popularity in the prequels. Goldman, do you agree with that? Do you think that Anakin is back because of the popularity the prequels have seen?
Absolutely. Now, this is coming from someone who likes most of what Disney has done with Star Wars, but Lucasfilm has a hard-on for nostalgia. So if there's like if they see, oh, there's a resurgence with this part of Star Wars, they're gonna be like, okay, let's capitalize on that. I mean, the Bad Batch is kind of they're capitalizing on the popularity of the Clone Wars, and they're gonna do something similar with the Obi-Wan show. Now, I hope Anakin does serve an actual role in the story in terms of flashbacks, not so much Vader. But yeah, I feel like if Anakin was still as hated as he was back in 2005, then I don't think this would be happening. But it's been 15 years. The character is beloved now. Yeah, the popularity, I feel, is a pretty big reason why.
I agree. Lunga, you think the same? Do you think that? You remember very well the kind of backlash that Hayden got during the prequel era. I hate to beat a dead horse here. He's not the greatest actor. Fine guy, a very, very good person. And if you looked at some of his recent films, love the guy to death. Well, no, I mean he was in a film 2018. It was in an Italian style film. Yeah, I'm telling you, his films are very indie flicks, very very small.
It did not feel like he has grown as an actor at all. Since it's like, oh my God, I'm watching Anakin Skywalker in Italy or something. It was like there was no growth, and I feel bad. I hate saying that because I like the guy and I liked him to have success, but it's not there, dude.
Yeah, I mean, he's a fan favorite for a reason. I think he's good for the fan base in terms of his interaction with the fans. Lucas spoke very highly of him, and I think a lot of fans use the defense of George Lucas and his dialogue writing from the prequel era as one of the reasons Hayden's acting wasn't so amazing. But I do think for a lot of fans, this is going to be a great opportunity for people who grew up with the prequels to see Hayden back. For a lot of us, this was the main character of our Star Wars upbringing. And I think seeing him with Ewan again and seeing these two back on screen together is really going to be something special for a lot of Star Wars fans that a lot of us have missed. And I just don't know how they're going to pull off the chemistry between the two, and because I don't know how Hayden is going to be implemented. Like Lunga said, how is he going to be a major role? And for me, when I hear major role, this series is going to be 6 1-hour episodes. To me, that means Hayden's in at least 3 of them. But in what capacity and what's he doing? There's a lot of questions about Hayden's return and how it will be implemented. If it was just a cameo, we'd all get it. It'd be something we could just kind of write off as something to happen. But now that it's a major cameo or major role, I mean, I don't know. You could
I'm sorry, it's had this flash. It's like when you're talking about how people like to blame Lucas's writing and his script for the problems that it wasn't Hayden. I could just see like Hayden giving this like Shakespearean monologue to Padme and Lucas, cut. Hayden, let's focus on the sand. I think it's a really important focus on the sand and let us know how of a rough texture it is. Give us some of that.
And how it gets everywhere.
But not like Padme. Padme is, amazing. That Lucas would always say faster and more intense.
Yeah.
I guess the next topic we could go into would actually be continuing onto the Kenobi series. There might be a little bit of a trouble in paradise for that over there. Speaking of it, the news have been revealed in the past 24 hours. When the Kenobi series begins production, it will overlap the Cassian Andor series. So that basically means that the Cassian Andor series started pre-production again this month in July, and then are we in July or are we in June? Jesus, I don't even know what month it is. My bad.
We're in July.
We're in July. I know down there in Orlando they all feel the same.
Time is irrelevant here, but so it began production in July, and also apparently from MakingStarWars.net, Lucasfilm is having sensitive and creative differences again for the Kenobi show. Lunga, I'm going to shoot this over to you. Why do you think Lucasfilm is constantly having creative differences with these kind of projects? And this, by the way, like I said, this is the second time this has happened for the Kenobi show. So what do you think about that, Lunga?
Hold on. I haven't read this. I just saw you talking about it, and I know nothing of this. So, I mean, I know the past one, but not whatever's currently. What other than the line creative differences, is there any details, or are they people just calling it creative differences?
This comes from MakingStarWars.net. I'm assuming it's his sources over there at Pinewood Studios, and he's saying that Lucasfilm currently is working out sensitive and creative differences behind the scenes about the Kenobi series.
Yeah, and Warner Brothers said they're not doing a Snyder cut. There's factions. This is what's been happening, and I really feel it's happening at Lucasfilm too. Now, I do not in any way want to give credence to this Civil War nonsense that people say is going on.
Yeah, no, that's entirely wrong.
But depending on who your source is and where they line up, you know what I mean? You could have people that are working in Lucasfilm that are more nostalgic. You got people that are more, progressive with it. And maybe there is some creative differences, and depending on who the leaks are, they're telling people a story, a hyperbolic story. Let's put it that way. It may not be as serious as they're making it sound, but they want to make it sound that way because it's news. You know what I mean? And I need to hear more. I hate
that's fair. That's fair.
Jeffrey, but I need to hear more.
No. You're being cautious on it, and I think that's a fair point. I don't think this is truly huge or breaking news because, I mean, literally the port from MakingStarWars.net, the actual quote from his friend was, "I think there is creative and sensitive and creative differences being worked out behind the scenes over there at Lucasfilm for this series." And to me, that doesn't sound far off from the truth because of the history that Lucasfilm has with these kind of things. And also that, they announced in 2019, hey, the scripts are ready to go. And now this year they're being rewritten. And so I think that it makes sense that
last time wasn't really creative differences. It was a script. They decided not to go with the script, and they
I think it would be
not a creative difference.
I think changing the script though is having creative differences with what Hossein Amini wanted to do with the show, because apparently it was too similar to The Mandalorian. So they wanted to go a different route. And I think that's the Lucasfilm story group constantly having differences on what they want to be implemented in their shows or the stories for Star Wars. I really don't know, but it just seems like this is a constant thing. And I'll give credit to Making Star Wars because they are credible. I don't feel like they try to ever really push a narrative. I think Jason Ward himself is just kind of the guy who wants to be first to the punch on a lot of these things, and he's got a good track record.
I'm more suspect of his source, not necessarily him. You know what I
That's
mean?
Fair.
The source could have an agenda.
Yeah, and that's been rising up lately.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, and that's why I brought up the Snyder cut, because that's what happened with the sources that were saying it's never happening. Warner Brothers doesn't want to work with Zack Snyder again. They weren't wrong. Those were Warner Brothers sources. And then you had the whole other issue with AT&T, as the parent company saying, nah, bro, we're going to do something different. You know what I mean? So, so it wasn't technically wrong. So could this source be wrong? Not necessarily, but doesn't necessarily mean that what he's seen or the people he is aligned with him is the consensus. It may not be.
That's fair. Golden, what are your thoughts? Do you think there's any creative differences going on behind the scenes? Do you think that if there is, they could potentially delay the Kenobi series again due to these creative differences?
Well, the one thing they have on their side is that there's no release date, so they can't really delay it publicly. Like internally, they might have their own ideal release date, but then later on, they might think, oh, we need to delay it. That's not something they necessarily need to announce to everyone, because we don't know when it's coming out. We say 2022, but that's just the rumors. But I don't know if I believe that there are creative differences. There could be, but it's just strange to think, because remember, this was originally going to be a movie. So they've had this story in some form at Lucasfilm for a very long time. Because I remember there was a Hollywood Report announcement maybe in 2017, 2018 that this was going to be a movie. And then it came out, once Mandalorian was so popular, oh, this is going to be a show now. Or it was a little before, but once Disney Plus was a big thing.
It was James Mangold in 2017 that was supposed to be the director for the movie. They've been working on the Kenobi show or the Kenobi whatever, but literally just Kenobi, the Kenobi story. There you go. They've been working on this for the past 5 years, and that's from Ewan McGregor himself. And with the 2020 release window, I know it's not going to come out on a specific date in 2020. Like I can't pinpoint that. I don't know if it'd be in the first half of the year or in the last half, but if production starts for this in January of 2021, which that is definitely confirmed, it would likely come out in the beginning of 2022. But we also know that some of the leaks for like the production slate that they have, like the release windows that they go for, I don't know if it's like in the legal sense or whatnot, but when they give it to Disney Plus, like when they plan on releasing stuff, the release window for this is 2022. So I think you're right. I think if they do delay it, it's not going to affect anything. And that's even what Ewan McGregor had hinted at in the past when we had these new script rewrites, where he said, we're still keeping that original air date is what he called it. We're just changing up the script. So it could be something completely small. It could just be something like, hey, we want to put Hayden in a little bit more, or hey, we want to change up what Kenobi's doing. It just seems that for me, this is a pattern that Lucasfilm has had with a lot of writers, a lot of directors to not like what they
or they could be really cautious because they don't want to have the problems they had with the sequel trilogy, especially with a legacy character like Kenobi.
That's true, and there's a lot riding on this one. There's a lot of interest in this one, and this is the one where I think if you mess this up, you're going to have a lot of pissed off Star Wars fans.
This sounds weird. You would think they'll anger more people by messing up Luke Skywalker. However, man, I'm telling you, the Kenobi love, man, and the memes and the culture around Kenobi, with Ewan McGregor playing him, if you screw up Kenobi, that's going to be a big hole.
I disagree.
It's going to be a big hole.
I'm with him on this. I'm with Lunga on this. Like, Goldman, why do you disagree?
Because for one, Obi-Wan, he's popular with memes, and Revenge of the Sith's a popular movie, but he was never really a main character. Like, he's very important in the prequels, sure, but what is there to ruin?
You already pissed off the original trilogy fans. If you piss off the
different.
prequel fans, would do this.
You already, even though I disagreed that Luke was ruined, I can understand how you could ruin Luke. People don't think he matches the character that he was in the originals because, he was the main character. He has a whole identity. What could they do to Obi-Wan to really screw him up realistically? Like, they're not, obviously they could do something.
Have a run in with Darth Vader.
Have a run with Darth Vader. Have him shave off his beard.
Yeah, exactly.
That would ruin the character. But yeah, like I disagree. I don't think. Sure, there could be something they could, if they did bring Vader in and they kind of retcon that line where Vader says, "I haven't seen you since," like that. I believe that could piss off people, but that's not necessarily ruining the character. I don't think.
I'll give you this. If he. This is what I mean by ruin. Again, if you want to talk about major plot points, that's not even what I'm talking about. If you take just the Luke thing, like the way Luke was acting and just the way he was acting and talking, it was not the Luke that us old people remember. He was completely different. And if you take an Obi-Wan, that it's not even that much of a time difference like with Luke, you could say, oh, well, there was 30 years or whatever, but all this time. And with Obi-Wan, you're taking him literally a handful of years after the prequels and just before the original trilogy, and you start making him act differently than what people remember him as, that's going to be a problem. Just a tonal shift is enough to cause a problem.
I just don't think that here is that if he doesn't hear Obi-Wan Kenobi say hello there at least twice within the series, they've ruined the character.
Twice a series. Twice an episode, buddy.
That's the quota they got to meet. Twice an episode.
Yeah, that's actually a fun bet. Do you think he'll say hello there in the series?
Oh, he has to. I don't think so. He has to. Oh, come on.
I would love it. Phrase where depending on how he says it, it means something different. Just like the Italians would forget about it. Depending on how you say forget about it, it means something different. The way he says.
So you're saying if he's at a Mos Eisley cantina and he sees a a young Twi'lek walking by, and he goes, "Hello there."
Right. Or he's angry and hello there. You know,
yeah. Throw it away, kind of one. That's very fair. So Goldman, got to ask you: do you think the Kenobi series is going to happen in 2022 or not? You think there's any room for caution with these rumored creative differences?
2022.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it'll come out in 2022. Again, we still got to see how this whole virus plays out. But if things go back to somewhat normal within the next year, I mean, when did The Mandalorian start production? Well, even Mandalorian season 2 finished production.
Everything on Mandalorian's fast track, though, dude. Everything about Mandalorian, it is on such a fast-paced schedule and organized schedule.
Yeah, it's the only one that hasn't had major production problems. And if you recall, Jon Favreau said right after they released season 1, they basically started production on season 2.
Yeah. So yeah, it doesn't seem like it takes as long to make a show. And Obi-Wan's going to be a smaller show. I mean, it's going to be. Is it confirmed that's going to be 6 episodes? I don't think so. That's just the credible rumor.
Yeah, right? I think that comes from
it comes from this guy called Star Wars Only.
Yeah, very, very credible source. I know him. Of course, I know him. He's me. No, it comes from, I think, either Variety or the Hollywood Reporter. I don't know who exactly, but yeah, I would go ahead and just confirm and say it's 100% going to be 6 episodes, 1 hour apiece. Because it was supposed to be 8, by the way, and that was.
I was the one that said 6 episodes, 1 hour. You were thinking 4 episodes, 45 minutes for a while, there, buddy.
I was. I didn't think they were going to do anything good with this, but if people who have better sources than I do, and people who have a better track record like Variety and the Hollywood Reporter, I ride with a lot of what they say because they do have that history. But I would hope they go for 8 episodes, and I would hope they just make it 2 seasons. But I do know it's going to be a one and done kind of thing.
But yeah, I just. Given the way shows are made and given that they've been in pre-production for this show for so long, there would have to be major problems for it not to come out within the next 3 years. I just find it hard to believe that if they start production, even in like summer of 21, that they can't get this thing released by winter of 22. I just find that hard to believe.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll happen in 2022. I'm excited to see where it goes. The last little topic I do want to talk about is young Han Solo. If you guys remember Alden Ehrenreich, he talked about a potential sequel to the Solo spinoff. And Alden Ehrenreich, he's a young Han Solo in Solo Star Wars story. He said in a recent interview that he would return to Star Wars if he felt the story was right. And then he's also heard some stuff, but nothing concrete. We know that there are fans who want to see a Solo 2, but it seems like most fans just want to explore a story between Darth Maul and Kira. Lunga, I'll ask you, do you want to see Alden, the young Han Solo, back in Star Wars? What are your thoughts on him?
I'm not. I know he's laughing. He thinks, you expecting a different answer from me?
No. It was. Okay. I laughed at a comment.
Someone
said Claude needs a trilogy, and I agree.
Claude needs a trilogy. Get him out there. Let's get him out there. I'm not going to say I'm a hashtag make Solo 2 happen person, but I'm interested. I like the movie. I actually liked it. I'm one of the people that actually liked it. My son, believe it or not, who hates all things Disney, Star Wars, he watched it finally. He's like, I didn't watch it because everyone's talking crap about it. I'm like, dude, just sit down and watch it with me. He watched with me like 3-4 months ago. He's like, that's my favorite Star Wars movie out of Disney. So I mean, really? Yeah, and he's an old curmudgeon more than me, and he's 26. But he said he liked it. And I thought, I could be honest with you, I thought Alden did a pretty good job giving us I think he really studied Harrison Ford. He did. I don't know why people feel like he didn't sound like him or act like him, but he did to me. And the Lando was perfect in it too. I liked it. So I'd be curious to see it. But again, where are we going with the story? I felt it was better off just as a one-off. If we want to sing it just because people loved his portrayal of him so much, we need a story, though. Just because you want to see him back on the screen doesn't mean there's a story there.
And he did hint at that. He did say he would return if he felt the story was innate and that it was actually something that he needed to come back for. But if you recall back when I think they started production on this, there were reports coming out that he signed on for 3 films, and that's clearly not going to happen. I mean, I hate to be a bearer of bad news. They're not making 2 more solo films, but I could see them bringing Alden back in some sense. And he even said he's heard some stuff, but nothing concrete. I think he's hinting at a potential Lando Calrissian show, and that's just because Kathleen Kennedy has talked about potentially bringing characters from that into a series. There's been people with credible history saying that Lucasfilm has looked at characters from the solo Star Wars story to bring them back in their own spin-off series and whatnot. So maybe he could appear in something like that. Maybe he could also do the Kira and Darth Maul show. And I'll ask you, Goldman, which do you prefer, a sequel to Solo or a story following Darth Maul and Kira?
I would much prefer a story with Darth Maul and Kira. Yes, I really dislike the concepts of shows devoted to a single character. Like Obi-Wan's the only example where I can say I like the concept, just because there's so much there and there's so much you can dive into that character. But when it comes to storytelling, I'm not a big fan of prequels. I like not knowing what's going to happen to my characters. With something like Clone Wars, it works because of Ahsoka and Rex, even though season 7 Rebels came out, but most of Clone Wars, we didn't know what was going to happen to them. With something like Maul and Kira, yeah, we know what happens to Maul, but at least Kira, we don't know what's going to happen to her. Even though I'm not entirely interested in the character, like I'm not interested in Han Solo during this time period either. I think the most interesting aspects of Han Solo are his relationship with Leia or Ben Solo. So yeah, it's not like I would want to see a show with Darth Maul or Kira. I honestly wouldn't. I don't care. I feel like Darth Maul's story has been told. Yeah, they can add some stuff with Crimson Dawn, but I liked how he was in Clone Wars and I liked how he ended up in Rebels. I don't really need to see any more Darth Maul. But yeah, I'd only say I prefer to see a Darth Maul and Kira show just because we don't know what happens to Kira. That's the only reason.
It's a good point. Lunga, what your thoughts? Sequel to Solo or Darth Maul and Kira? Your choice.
If I had to pick a choice, yeah, Darth Maul and Kira. I think there's a more compelling story there. It's evolving a legacy character we know that we don't see a lot of on the big screen. Mm-hmm. Because all we got was that little bit of him in Phantom Menace, and other than that, it's been animated series, and the appearance at the end of Solo. But I would love to see that. And I'm unlike Goldman, I actually really liked the character of Kira. I thought it was a really intriguing character. And I would love to see that more than Han Solo, because let's be again, this is why I don't want to add too much of it, because Han Solo's his time between what we saw in that movie, if you will, and the original trilogy was being a smuggler. That's it. He was going around doing things. I don't want him running into Jedi or running into Sith or anything like that, or people that are Force sensitive, because when we get to the original trilogy, he thinks it's all hokey religions. He doesn't believe in any of this crap. You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
And he doesn't even admit it until we get to the sequel trilogy. It's real. You know, I mean, that's what he, that's when he finally like admits it to someone outside of his own mind. You know what I mean? But I don't want to see him running into Maul, because it's like, he's not supposed to really believe in any of this stuff. He's not supposed to really think it's real. But so Kira and Maul, I think that's a more compelling show. And someone in the comments talked about Dryden Voss could possibly appear in Bad Batch. And he said the character model. I'm assuming you meant from Clone Wars, because we did see him when they were having that communication with Maul, Dryden Voss.
Yeah, he had an animated model for him, and Kira could appear in Cassian Andor. That's a good point. One of the few like inside scoops I've been able to get over the past year was that Lucasfilm is actively looking at Ray Park to reprise his role as Darth Maul in a live action capacity. So, and that comes, I mean, I can't just be like, hey, who that comes from, but I mean, that comes from someone that I know is definitely 100% in the know on these kind of things. And I think that's good news for people who are fans of Maul. And I think because of the resurgence of his popularity and character since probably 2010, 2011, when he returned in the Clone Wars, I think that's one of the reasons we're potentially going to see him again, is because he's a very familiar character, and his character arc has really improved over the past 5 years. So I think we're going to get more Maul, and I think we're going to see him and Kira, that story continue.
And that's another thing. I would want it, as much as I love Darth Vader, as much as I'm in the relationship, I would rather see more Maul than Vader. I'm honest with you.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And I really wish we could have seen him in the Kenobi series, but I think Rebels kind of acts that entire potential. And I will admit, I'm extremely disappointed with that, because I would have, I know they're older by probably 21, maybe 20 years at this point, but I would have really loved to see Ewan McGregor and Ray Park work together again and do another lightsaber battle and just go ham. Like just do what they did last time and really give us a good lightsaber battle.
Now, if I remember correctly, the way that battle when he finally killed him in Rebels, because that's where he died, was in Rebels, where Obi-Wan had his final showdown with Maul.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't they kind of insinuate, like, if not overtly, like kind of like they may have run into each other a few times throughout these years?
No,
this was supposed to be their final meet, or Obi-Wan had no idea that he was alive.
I don't remember. I've seen it once, and I don't want to see it again.
A while ago, so I don't remember.
Well, no, because in the beginning of season 3 of Rebels, I recently watched it. There's a scene where Maul and Ezra are like joining holocrons and they gain knowledge, and Maul keeps on saying like he lives, and he was like surprised, and it's implying that he knows it's Obi-Wan. So that the implication is that I guess he assumed he died with all the other Jedi. Now, could they say that he thought Obi-Wan died some other point? Sure, but that means you would have to tell a story where Maul and Obi-Wan fight. Obi-Wan ends up in a situation where he seems like he's dead, and Maul believes he's dead, but he's not. It gets a little too convoluted after that. So
to me, I think if they have Obi-Wan have an inkling he was alive, and one thing we don't know about the show, Obi-Wan show, is if it's a really short timeline or if it's an extracted timeline over these 6 episodes. Okay, I personally would like to, because how many years we're talking? We're talking about 18 years, right? That was
19.
Yeah, 18 and 19, but it's a few years after Revenge of the Sith too.
Yeah, so we'll say 16. Let's say 16 years. Okay.
Fair.
And if we cut out the year before he goes off of Luke, we'll say 15. So let's make it a nice divisible by 5 number of 15 years. Okay, we'll say 15-year time span. If you split up those episodes into 3 to 4 year increments, where every time you go from one episode to another, 3 or 4 years have passed. You know what I mean? I think that can make a much more compelling story. And I don't care if we've already seen it. We haven't seen it live action. Make that at the last episode be that battle. If not the last episode, the episode 2 to second last episode where he confronts Maul, and let's see that replayed again in live action.
I don't think it's an awful idea. I don't see Lucasfilm putting in the resources for that.
Well, they need to hire me then.
I disagree with you because Maul's search for Obi-Wan was pretty intertwined with Rebels, and Obi-Wan's just chilling on Tatooine. So besides that, like 5 to 10 minute confrontation between the two, how can you stretch that out to be a whole episode or two? I don't see how they could do that.
You said he's just chilling. We have no idea what Obi-Wan's doing. That's the thing. Yeah. That's what the show is about. We have no idea what he was doing.
We know he hasn't encountered Darth Maul though.
And the simplest thing we could say is he was chilling, just watching Luke. Okay, which is a boring series. Okay, obviously. Okay, there's nothing happening there. Okay, and we don't want him gallivanting across the galaxy because that's the point of it. He needs to be on Tatooine. That's where he's at to watch over Luke. That's why he's there. He's a sentinel. Okay, he's not leaving. Yellow is telling you maybe he takes a day trip to some spa on another planet. I don't think so. I think he's a crazy old man, crazy old Ben that he does not leave Tatooine. So everything has to happen there. Now, if there's these scenes with Hayden and stuff like that, and Hayden obviously knows about the deal with Maul too, okay, and he knows everything. There could be flashbacks. Maybe we get voice. Maybe we get Anakin from Beyond. Who knows? You know what I mean? There could be where he's kind of, or not Anakin from Beyond. Sorry, because he's alive at this point. He's Darth Vader. But there could be flashback scenes about Maul, and it could be inklings that he feels something going on out there. You know, that Maul's out there, he still lives or something, and you could just have those little seeds that lead up to a conversation. It doesn't have to be a major plot arc.
I think you make a good point. I'll kind of meet both of you in the middle with this. What if, like, let's say it's there's a specific episode kind of doing what Lunga's saying, where it's each episode's a few years apart or something like that. You know, we're seeing him kind of change as a person and as a character. And then there's one episode where he's just kind of chilling. He's got a lot of gray in his beard. He's looking really old. And maybe he's having a nightmare. In that nightmare, we see the flashback of him and Maul finally having their final duel. And it's just a quick little, not even a minute long, maybe like a 20 to 10 second, not a montage, but just a 20 to 10 second memory of him remembering Maul coming at him. And that's Ray Park reprising his role as live action Maul. And then Ewan McGregor playing, you know, Obi-Wan in
works.
I think that would be a decent way to reenact that scene. But personally, I would hope that if they're going to bring Maul back, if what I've been told is true, that they're looking at Maul to come back, I would rather him just do a Kira series than really appear in Kenobi. I really think, since we can't use Maul in the Kenobi show, I think it's a perfect opportunity to actually add some character to him. And I think that would do great wonders for the Star Wars fandom, because we always look at these kind of things and go, well, I want to see General Grievous come back and fight Obi-Wan and do it all again. It's like, no, I don't want the live action. I don't want the lightsaber love fest that we always have. I truly want some character development for Obi-Wan, because Ewan McGregor, hearing George cough in the mic all the time and everything, I really think that this is the potential to add a lot of character to the character of Obi-Wan that we did not get in the prequels. And I know we all love the prequels now, but his character was wasted. And Ewan McGregor's the best actor out of the three, with Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen. I mean, I watched him in Moulin Rouge, I think this past week with my girlfriend, and the dude can sing. Did y'all know he could sing? I mean, the dude's talented.
Wasn't he one of the voices in Beauty and the Beast?
Yeah, he was the candle little guy. So I mean, the guy can sing. Now I'm not saying I want him to bust out a musical.
It's a musical.
Yeah, oh god.
Hello there. Hello there.
He could do it too.
And Hayden Christensen joins them too, and they start singing together.
Oh god, yeah, he could talk about sand. And I mean, that's true. Is Hayden really going to show up in the show where it's mostly covered in sand? I think
he could just sing "I'll Wait for It" from Hamilton, because it fits right in, because he's on Tatooine just waiting for it.
No,
I'm gonna wait for it.
So last question though about the Kenobi series, and this will be the last question that we have for the Chatooine Show today, episode 5. Do you guys think Liam Neeson could possibly reprise his role as Qui-Gon? And the reason I pitched this is because at the end of Revenge of the Sith, Yoda specifically says, "Training I have for you,
yes,
an old friend, Netherworld, it's Qui-Gon." And there was even supposed to be Qui-Gon talking to Yoda in Revenge of the Sith until fucking Liam Neeson didn't show up for voice lines. Thanks a lot, Liam. But I mean, we could see him do that again. Do you guys
too
think
busy finding his daughter?
He's too busy. He's too busy actually having a career and not dealing with all that George Lucas blue screen crap that made him almost quit acting.
I would love to see Qui-Gon. I think there's a lot there with Obi-Wan learning how to commune with the ghosts. And again, this isn't a book, and it doesn't seem like they care about the books that much. But there was a book. It was called The 40 Short Stories during episode 4. So it's like just short stories that take place during the movie, but from a different perspective. And one of those short stories was when Luke went to go see Beru and Owen when they were burned. And the story's from Obi-Wan's perspective. And while Luke's gone, he's talking to Qui-Gon's Force Ghost. So canonically, he has spoken to Qui-Gon. He did during the events of episode 4. So again, how much do they care about that? We'll see. But just leading the concept of maybe, I guess, something kind of like The Rise of Skywalker, where he begins the story not being able to commune with the ghosts. And by the end, he learns. It wouldn't be like The Rise of Skywalker because Rey didn't really learn that. But maybe Obi-Wan learns how to commune with the ghosts. He's in touch with Yoda somehow. Oh, will Yoda be part of the show? That's another question. Because they can talk to each other somehow. Like in Rebels, Obi-Wan knew of Ezra. Like when he sees Ezra, he calls him Ezra Bridger, and they never met before. So Obi-Wan somehow has eyes on the rest of the galaxy. So I could see him communing with Yoda, communing with Qui-Gon's ghost, and I honestly would really like that. I think Qui-Gon has more to offer to this show than people might think.
I agree.
I would like to see that.
I would love to see Qui-Gon come back. Lunga, final thoughts? You want Qui-Gon back?
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to see Qui-Gon back. And I mean, if they do him as a Force Ghost, but I think the whole point they're saying about Liam Neeson is that, or not Liam Neeson, but of Qui-Gon, was he's teaching him to do it, but he was only able to doing this because of what happened in prequels, that he only can come back as a voice, not as a full Force Ghost. So I guess, having Liam Neeson voiceovers is easy. Guy can do it from home, they can do that. Or if they could do a Force Ghost, and they can make him not even look as old because it's, CGI Force Ghost stuff. They can make him look relatively still like the age he was when he died as Qui-Gon. I'd like to see Qui-Gon, yeah, and that was a major point. I mean, we ended Revenge of the Sith with that cliffhanger, right? That the only payoff we get for it in the original trilogy was Obi-Wan coming back, being a ghost, but he doesn't mention there how he learned it. So we're missing that bit of information, this whole training thing, which is the series. That's when this is supposed to happen. So
yeah, I'm sure the series will be about him training in some sense. I think it would really be a nice arc to see Qui-Gon be the one to do it. But that's all the time we have for today, my friends. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm going to go ahead and give a quick shout out again to Lunga. He reached 1,000 subscribers in 4,000 hours, so he finally reached that monetization. Congratulations, my friend. Make sure you guys everyone, go check out Goldman and Lunga's channel. Their channel's link should be in the description below. Thank you all for tuning in. We will see you all next time here on Chatooine. Until next time, my friends, may the Force be with you always.